Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Orphan Black Season 4. This video is where I give my overall thoughts on Season 4 of Orphan Black as a whole, so I have to give a spoiler warning for all of Season 4 of Orphan Black. If you haven't seen up to this point, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. So, I was meant to do this video last weekend, but I got a bit busy and it got overlooked. But there's a few things I wanted to say about Season 4. However, I'll keep this video relatively short. If you want to hear my thoughts on Orphan Black Season 4, you can check out my individual episode reviews. Also, I did a discussion video with Josh and Anna from Geeksiders over on their channel, and I'll leave a link for that video in the description below. So Season 4 has definitely restored my faith in the show overall, and I think marks one of the greatest recoveries in TV history. Had Season 4 not been that good and it was more of the same, I likely would have given up on this show altogether. I personally feel the first part of Season 1 was some of the best storytelling on television but ever since the end of Season 1, the show has been going downhill, with Season 3 in particular being very convoluted and taking characters in a direction I felt was highly inconsistent with what had already been established and a bit unbelievable. However, with Season 4, it's like the showrunners read my mind. Everything I felt they needed to do to make the show better, they did, which is to bring the story down a bit more, make it more simple and believable rather than so convoluted, drop the whole caster storyline because that wasn't good, and keep the characters more in character, not in any more of these radical shifts that make no sense, and focus more on the characters, and most importantly, try to get back to what made Season 1 so great, and this season did that in spades. Obviously, they couldn't completely ditch all the storylines from the previous seasons without it making any sense, so we did get some continuation with the Ferdinand, but they tried to tie him more into the current storyline, and with Kendall as well, but she was killed off halfway through the season. So they started the season off in a really risky way that paid off in spades, with an entire episode taking place before the events of Season 1 following Beth, and it introduced characters and situations that would be important for the rest of the season, while at the same time reacquainting us with lots of characters from Season 1, including those that had died like Dr. Leaky. It was actually an amazing way to start the season. Episode 2 actually dipped a little bit from having to take off from the storylines of Season 3, which weren't so good, but shortly after that, the season started to settle into the new storyline, and I loved how Beth remained an important factor in the season, and we learned a lot more about her. It was actually really relevant to the current storyline. Overall, the way they managed to give us great callbacks to the start of this series, while at the same time pushing the story forward in an intriguing storyline, and the way that they managed to blend these two aspects was incredibly impressive. Plus, they solved some issues I had with Beth's suicide, which never made complete sense to me and seemed more like a plot convenience than anything else, but it was completely explained this year, and it made total sense, and it fit so well into the events of Season 1, it actually enhanced it, and that was impressive. We were introduced to a lot of new characters this season, such as great villains such as Evie and Detective Duco, who were both great villains. Evie was smart and ambitious, like all good villains, is also a person you can empathize with to a degree as she was working to eliminate disease, but overall the way she went about it was despicable, so you were wanting her to fail, and it was so satisfying when she did. And Detective Duco was such a despicable character. He almost reached Joffrey levels of despicability, just how smug and superior he was. It worked so well. He was an amazing villain. I dare say one of the best of the entire show. And one of the biggest characters to be introduced this year is MK, or Mika, who was introduced in an amazing way by showing her relationship with Beth, and that she was the one who had originally made Beth aware of Allison and Cosima. So basically, she started this whole thing. And we find out she had a falling out with Beth that pushed her underground, which is why we didn't meet her before this time. And again, this made total sense because they established her as a hermit who's afraid of appearing in public and hiding in the shadows from organizations like Neolution, and oh yeah, she's also a hacker genius. This made her character not only very valuable to our main characters, but also extremely interesting as well. We also get a few other characters, such as Dizzy, who is an interesting enough character, and Felix's blood sister Adele, whom I really didn't care for that much. They also reintroduced Krystal from season 3, as she kept reappearing. I liked her, and I'm glad that they kept bringing her back. However, I wasn't always completely happy with how they treated her. Sometimes they played her a bit too stupid for comic relief, when her story was actually quite tragic, so it didn't always sit right with me. They also delved deeper into the relationship of established characters. I like how they played with a conflict between Sarah and Allison, as for the most part these two weren't happy with each other throughout the season, which made it so much more tense when Allison had to choose between giving up Sarah or losing her husband. And this season delved a lot deeper into Cosima as well, as she became a bit more front and centered than she usually was, which was great because I love this character. Although this kind of came at the expense of Helena, who didn't appear that much this season, but when she did, it was always top quality stuff, such as when she saved Allison at the last second by killing these people in a bloody way. Always great stuff. The one character I could do without is Rachel, as throughout most of the season I found her storyline with Susan Duncan to be my least favorite and at times outright boring. At the end of the season, it was obvious they were trying to establish her as the main villain again and play up the conflict with her and Sarah, and although I didn't think it was bad storytelling necessarily, it's not really what interests me. This, I believe, was one of the most emotional seasons, as it played off Sarah learning about Beth and how her past helped inform her relationship with MK, where we got a lot of really touching scenes between them. Plus, we had an amazing downturn in episode 6 where Cosima had to watch Duco kill Kindle right in front of her and destroy all of her work that would have saved all of their lives, while learning Delphine was shot. It was a really heart-wrenching scene, and I dare say one of the most emotionally powerful in the entire series. They also had some great moments with Donnie and Allison when Neolution threatened Donnie's life in order to get Allison to turn on Sarah. That was some really emotionally powerful stuff. Unfortunately, I felt the end of the season didn't quite live up to the powerfulness of what came before, as it started focusing more on Rachel as a villain, and Evie, who had seemed so unstoppable before, seemed to be defeated rather easily. It was a tad bit anticlimactic. And they started focusing more on this mysterious creator of Neolution, who is apparently over 100 years old and still alive and healthy, and to be honest, I wasn't incredibly interested in this, but we'll see where they take it from here. It seems to me that unlike most seasons, which for the most part were mostly self-contained, this season seemed to be more designed as the first half of a two-parter, and season 5 will be the second half. So in that regard, it seems a bit incomplete and left me a bit unsatisfied, but I'm hoping that season 5 will resolve those feelings. However, this does make me extremely hopeful about season 5, which is intended to be the final season of the show. It makes me really confident that the showrunners had a plan when starting this season to end the show in a great way, where season 4 was the start of it, and what a great start it was. So if season 4 is any indication, this show is likely to end in an amazing way. One thing that really hit me about the show overall is how female-centric it is. I'm hesitant to use the word feminist because of all the weird implications the internet has built up around that word, but I think it would apply. And frankly, this makes me appreciate this show so much more, because typically female-centered shows are kept to the Sex and the City type shows, or perhaps like the already Downton Abbey types. Typically, when there's a sci-fi suspense mystery thriller like this, it tends to be like big muscular white men running around being heroes. But it occurred to me that this show was almost entirely made up of strong female characters. Not just all the lead clones, but also strong characters like Siobhan and Susan Duncan, and even the main villains who have the most power are the most devious, are the powerful women like Rachel and Evie, whereas the men tend to be more of side henchmen like Duco and Ira, or helpful sidekicks like Art, Felix, and Scott. And again, I think this is a great thing, because it's good to have a different perspective than most shows have, and most shows are a bit too male-centric. And the clones themselves tend to represent all the different aspects of femininity, basically saying it's all good and they can all come together to accomplish something great. You have the married family woman, the single mother recovering addict, the college-educated lesbian, the career woman, the valley girl type beautician, the hermit computer hacker, and, well, Helena, I guess, represents insane people. All in all, I think together represents all aspects of womanhood coming together to be more than the sum of their parts, and I think the show pulls this off amazingly well. So my rating for Orphan Black Season 4 out of 10 is a 9 excellent. This is definitely my favorite season of the show since Season 1, and it was amazing to see them turn the show around so drastically by doing all the right things in order to make this show interesting again. All the character interactions were on point, and they managed to reconnect with what made Season 1 so great in order to enhance the story going forward, while giving us some great callbacks to what made the show good to begin with, while at the same time keeping things fresh, as it never at any point felt like a rehash of Season 1, as it introduced a lot of great new characters like MK, Evie, and Duco, which overall it was just pulled off really well and used to explore in more detail the characters we were already familiar with, such as Sarah, Allison, and Cosima, and it was just all great. The season wasn't without its flaws, though, the Rachel storyline being a big one for me, and the introduction of Adele felt a bit unnecessary, but all in all, a great season. So that's it for my review of Orphan Black Season 4. Be sure to check out my channel for many more videos on other shows such as Game of Thrones and Star Trek. And in the coming months, I'll be doing weekly episode reviews for Vikings and Mr. Robot as those shows return to television. So make sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.